Sure. Okay. We are now out of executive session, and we'll continue on with our agenda. Moving on, item C2 is the review of the superintendent annual summative evaluation. There is a document that basically is the annual summative of all the ELs that we went through throughout the year, the comments that were made, those that were approved throughout the meetings. This is a vital piece of this is a good a document that will be utilized in the overall evaluation of the superintendent.
Can we pull that up on the screen? I think it's just good to have that while we're discussing it.
Yeah.
Number 2.
So
Okay. Can you scroll down to the bottom? I think it's the last page. Is that also shown in the Zoom?
The document? Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I looked at this and said EL1 needs greater progress and EL5 is with an exception. Do we have that at the very last page? Is that what that is? Or just that's all, and then all of our comments and remarks and stuff? Oh, okay.
yeah, that's all.
It's not all in there.
Mm-hmm.
Like a chart.
Mm.
There's a page that has a chart. One of the documents. There we go, the 3-year comparison. I thought that was really interesting to look at.
Mm-hmm.
That there had been a few in the past, and I know many of those have different numbers or names now,
Mm-hmm.
but balance of student diversity was there in 2017-18 and 18-19, not this year. Budget extension has not been in there yet, but that was the only EL that was with an exception.
Yep.
This time. That's a tremendous amount of change.
Yeah.
In the positive. We want the least amount there possible.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it doesn't take into effect the ELs, but I think there's always been 1, if not 2 ELs that were greater degree of progress was desired. And just we only have 1 this year.
Yeah, that's I mean, looking at it from all 3 years, it is definite progress.
Yeah.
Step in the right direction. Again, for Lindsay and
I was on mute.
for Lindsay and Sharon, this is something that we'll need to study good for the next 3 or 4 days for our meeting on Monday. But this is, again, just a recap of the entire year, the stuff that was said, discussed, and that was approved by ourselves. So good information. Any questions? Moving on to item C3, preliminary discussion regarding superintendent contract. What we've done in the past, and I was told that there's some districts that are missing that haven't provided their superintendent contracts. This is kind of a visual for us as to what the people around us, I think it's inclusive of both sides of the state also.
So I actually looked up, because I'm not awesome at geography for the state of Washington. I mean, cities is what I should say there. Bremerton, Centralia, Port Angeles, and Shelton are all
On the side.
the other side. West Valley is Yakima area.
No, that's this particular West Valley is Spokane.
Spokane.
Oh, well, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Maybe that was an elementary that I pulled up and not a school district then. And so the reason why we came up with these, school districts, and there were more originally on the list, is we went to OSPI and we said, school districts with, 75%, I think, let me unmute.
School districts with 75% or more low, free and reduced lunch, and that have equal to or greater graduation rates than we do. Similar size, and we did like within 2,000 this way and that way or something. There was like, because we wanted like,
Criteria, trying to
Yes.
get this to be.
and we wanted it to be both sides as much as possible. Because of course, different places have different costs of living and stuff. But then I think some of those districts have dropped out and changed how and why they fit in. And so if we wanted to go to other districts, the problem is we have to do a public records request to get their contract, and that takes some time, some depending upon the district.
Some of their contracts are available off the web. If you just go to the webpage. I would definitely like to see some more from this. Eastern Washington, Pullman is one. They're about the same size. Probably Colfax.
What about Ephrata?
Freda.
We might not have the same demographics we're looking for, I'm not sure.
Chris, wasn't there like a list of schools that just didn't respond yet? I know we asked a few other schools, but they just haven't responded.
Yeah. And I know some of this is going to. Some of them actually get on the webpage.
Okay, so you mentioned.
Pullman, Colfax, Ephrata,
Okay.
And even Quincy.
Quincy.
That would,
Two is really good demographics for the Columbia Basin areas.
right, that would definitely be interested.
Yeah, that'd be good information to
Okay.
comparison purposes.
Right, because we're just looking at these to compare right now. We're not actually coming up with a proposal yet.
No,
That's hopefully our next meeting.
be on Monday. Any questions, Lindsay? Did you open any of these contracts, Sharon, as you were going down through them? Okay. Basically, these are the superintendent contracts of these districts.
So the little tricks of looking at a contract, these types of contracts, they have vehicle allowances, they have cell phones, they have technology, they have insurance coverage. All those are often per month above and beyond their salary number. So don't just look at their salary number. And then also there was a, like how many days they work and how many in a year and how many sick days they get. And so, Tony actually made these awesome charts for us to all look at and compare apples to apples, but, I didn't look at it enough to make an awesome chart. So,
No, good information, like I said, just to get a.
Two technology things going on.
Good references to get our minds together on our upcoming discussion to have regarding the superintendent contract. Okay, moving on. We are going to review the board survey from the staff and community. The process will be, I will read off the questions. Jen will give us the cumulative results from this year's versus last year's. And upon reading all the questions, we will go and look at some of the comments, if not all of them, read them and have a discussion afterwards. So this is the school board evaluation from the community. Question number 1. I believe the board puts the needs of students above all else.
Hold on. Oh, I've lost my Zoom. Where's my Zoom? I can't unmute my Zoom if I can't find it. I'm just gonna rejoin.
You never left.
Well, I couldn't find it.
Unmute yourself.
So I'm gonna unmute so I can do that part for me. And then, where did it, I don't know where it went. Okay. Okay, so we're doing community first?
Yes.
Okay,
Really quick, since you're doing a comparison with last year and this year, I see this year we got 54. Do you happen to have a number for last year? How many?
no,
I can look at that here.
please do. And so we'll get that answer in a minute. But we don't have, not, we need to ask next year for there to be a this year and a last year on the cumulative too. Okay? Ready?
All right.
Break in when you have that.
I believe the board puts the needs of the students above all else.
This year is 3.1, last year was 2.95.
The board takes the time to learn about important issues facing schools through actions such as seeking input from the community, staff, and students.
This year is 2.9, last year was 2.76.
The board ensures its decisions are communicated to those affected by them.
This year is 3.0, last year was 2.71.
The board keeps informed about what children are learning through reports on scholastic achievement, vocational programs, and the impact of extracurricular activities.
This year is 3.1, and last year we changed the way people could answer that question. So that number is not the same.
42 last year.
42 last year
54.
and 54 this year, so more.
Yeah.
That's good. It's still a low percentage for our community, but
I believe the board participates in professional development opportunities available at regional, state, and national levels.
this year was 8.2. Last year, the answers we changed.
I have read through the board's ends policies.
This year is 4.8 and was not included last year.
I feel the board's ends policies reflect the values of our community and understand the direction the board wants to take our district.
This year is 1.7 was not included last year. Interesting that it goes from 4.8 for those that read to 1.7 that they think they reflect our community.
A board member has shared information with me personally that I know should have been kept confidential.
This year is 2.5. Last year is 1.19. That number changed by over 1.3 vote percentage or point value. That's a lot.
Question number 9. The board explicitly examines the downside or possible pitfalls of any important decision it is about to make.
This year is 2.8. Last year is 2.69.
The board shows an awareness of the impact its decisions will have on the students, staff, and community.
This year is 2.88. Sorry, last year is 2.54.
The board has formed committees that include staff and community representatives and allows them to report their findings at board meetings.
This year was 7.3, but last year was 8.06, and we changed the answer choices. So, interesting that it was changed, but still has a high number. Anyways,
The board withstands the pressures of special interest groups.
this year is 2.6. Last year was 2.57.
The board devotes more time preparing for the future than it devotes to dwelling on the past.
This year is 2.8. Last year is 2.85.
The board discusses where the school district will be 5 years from now.
This year is 2.9. Last year is 2.95.
The board conducts an annual superintendent evaluation.
This year is 7.4, and last year was 9.56, a drop by over 2 points.
What discourages me though, is the 24% that
I
you
don't know.
don't know. So that to me is a lack of communication.
Right.
I believe the board is leading our district in the correct direction.
16, right?
Yes.
This year is 2.7, and we changed the answer options.
There's still 16.6% that strongly disagrees.
Mhm.
Question 17, I believe individual board members issue instructions to the superintendent or school staff.
5.7 this year, and we changed the answers from last year, and so that's almost 50, I mean, there's 50-50.
50-50. That,
It's not a good answer
no.
that we want, right? Okay,
I am comfortable voicing my concerns either to an individual board member or to the board as a whole.
this year is 7.3 and last year 6.34, so we've gone up a whole point.
And then there is the list of comments.
Okay, so this year, total weighted average is 3.65, and last year was 3.56. Knowing that, and there were questions, we asked a lot more questions last year. We asked 23 questions last year and only 18 this year, so that's going to change the weighted average, well, not change the weighted average, but change some of the answers, and we changed how, if from like 4 options to a yes or a no, or vice versa. So those, it's a difference of a positive 0.09, but not apples to apples.
It's still good.
Yes,
It was a good cumulative. Yes, it is.
yes, yes. So, okay, we're on the staff one, is that right? Or we're on the community?
Community. I'll start and I'll read off the first 5, and then we'll go this way. That's okay, Jim?
Okay.
OSD has become sad and pathetic. Doing good job, thanks. NA, I have nothing to say. They are doing a great job.
You'll have to unmute to do your own. So you'll need to unmute and then.
I believe they do an evaluation of the superintendent. However, it is not an accurate evaluation. The decisions made in this school district are made by a superintendent and not by the elected school board members. Elected board members are there for show only. NA, I don't know. Continue listening to parents, teachers, and staff, and a nothing.
B's, don't know what that means.
I think it's BS.
Yeah. Continue with open communication. Care less on how you look to others and care more about your students. A monthly OSD bulletin mailed out to the community households. And there are some board members who are more concerned about politics and voters' opinions than what is actually best for the kids. Some have an agenda to get rid of certain programs as opposed to actually making the best decision for kids.
No comment. Please stop allowing those individuals who have a loud but minority voice from controlling the direction of the board and schools. Othello is a diverse community, and I expect the board members to find ways to hear the will of the silent majority.
Can we talk about that one for a minute?
Sure.
I'm sorry, let me unmute that.
I feel like we do. Try to listen to the silent majority, but how can we do that more? How can we, as a board, hear the silent majority louder than the loud people? Because that's kind of a theme that's said more than once throughout these by, I think, both community and staff. Maybe that's where our linkage needs to be. I don't know. I feel like that's an issue that we need to address, and maybe we should address it at the end after going through all of them. Okay.
Difficult decisions ahead. Budget decisions will affect policy decisions. Stay the course, do what's right for the kids and the community. May God grant you the unity, wisdom, and favor to guide us forward into the uncertainty we face. Newsletter on website from the board. I actually thought that was a good suggestion. I believe that OSD board is generally doing the right things. I haven't been as involved in the last year, so I didn't want to answer too many of these questions with certainty. I don't know of any failings myself. Keep it up.
I don't know right now. Develop diverse committees on school issues and allow them to bring forward proposals. That would be a very interesting idea as well. I think we're always open to proposals to look at different options. NA, thanks for your dedication to our kids' education. None. Was there an option for them to write an answer in their language or to be able to take this survey in their native language? That is, if that's the case, if that is the case that we did not have that as an option, that is a huge failing on our part as the board that we didn't request that, because I don't think that we did. And for having a community that's 89% 91% Hispanic. Anyways, high numbers Hispanic. Not that all of the Hispanics only speak Spanish or only speak or are not bilingual.
But there still
that
is
has to be an
a
option.
good part of the demographic that does not understand.
Right. And
English.
so I don't think that we've addressed that before that I remember.
No, we have not.
Was not an option.
It was never an option.
Do you know the percentage of our students that are ELL?
Yeah, well, I think it's right around 30%.
Okay, so you know.
So you know, with that 30%, most of the parents are going to be in the same situation, and that's it.
And maybe even make it so that they could come to a location and have a computer and a helper or something, because that just because they can read it doesn't mean that they're going to have access to it also.
I also want to say to that point, it's got to be more than 30% because several students will have their parents, they'll interpret for their parents. So even when they're not,
So that it
the
makes,
percentage
yes, it's
is
going
gotta
to be
be
much
above
higher.
30%.
I believe it's going to be much higher.
Okay,
X, period, none. The board should survey teachers to gather data concerning job satisfaction and open lines of communication concerning teacher support at district level.
I feel they do what is best for our students. They allow all people to voice their opinions and take everything into consideration. Bottom line, people within the community need to be more involved and not complain on choices being made when we are all given an opportunity to voice our opinions at school board meetings. Good job, guys. I'm informed. I want to see action and growth. Figure out if the sixth graders will return to MMS. It doesn't seem right that teachers and buildings are being overwhelmed with more students. I don't have any. Be better.
Even if the sixth graders are returned to MMS, all of the schools will be overcrowded. That won't change even if the sixth graders went back. So
I guess my question to that is, I guess directed at you, Dr. Hurst, do we not have a clear vision of if the sixth graders are staying or if they're like what that is going to look like, let's say in 5 years?
So we did talk to the executive team.
Yes, we did have a conversation with the executive team, and we actually talked with the principals as well. Our elementary principals are seeing great success with our sixth graders, and they opted not to want to have those sixth graders move back to the middle school. They're happy with the results that they're seeing academically, the growth in English language arts and mathematics. They're happy with the attendance growth that they're seeing also, and there's fewer discipline problems that they're seeing. If you remember last year, we were talking about the significant discipline issues happening at MMS with our sixth graders. They're not seeing it at the same level here. So they are tremendously happy with where the sixth graders are this year, and they want them to stay.
Well, I also noticed that our middle school going into this next year is our only school that's going to be at like an ideal capacity as far as teachers, students, the space, all of the things. So,
Desert Oasis also.
oh, Desert Oasis. So I guess what I'm saying is I agree to keep the sixth grade at the elementary school. Maybe that's a vision that we can communicate better to our community.
And I think through some of our facilities discussions that we've had, we've kind of still been addressing the K-6 model, even with the classrooms and what we need to do with some of those.
I think we stopped you. I'm not sure where we're.
We're at 36 on 10.
Yes. Start school again. Open floor discussions. Yeah, none. I think the school board is doing well, and none.
We need a new superintendent. He is a disgrace to the district. Why don't you guys and gals have a culinary class? Don't we?
We do. It's not called cooking. It's not called like, what's the title of it now? Cooking for singles. There's a different name. I have people come up to me all the time. You guys did away with home ec. Still there, different name.
Yeah. The public should have more time to address the board. More mail with more information. We don't all have social media.
I have none. I always get the feeling they don't really care. With all the new changes happening, maybe it will be better. Good communication on only what you want us to know. More transparency. Continue with online videos. Unimpressed with board meeting addressing new sex ed bill. The public presentation Jen made, basically reading everyone the bill verbiage, followed by her telling everyone to calm down their social media posts and concerns, offered little confidence to how it is being handled. The message I received was, everyone calm down. You all don't know what this bill entails. It's not a big change, calm down. Followed by the board writing a public letter to the superintendent's office. So which is it? Calm down, no big deal, or this is big. Let's take a public stance to look like we are doing something. I put confidence in the people holding the seats for all they review. This issue has, as of yet, left me unimpressed.
I think I heard this week that it's going to be on the November ballot.
Are you on mute?
No.
Okay, great,
And we didn't send the letter to OSPI, it was to the governor.
correct.
They
Just
mentioned-
because we're following and doing what the bill actually says now, there was a lot of misinformation about the
Yeah.
bill. That's really what I was trying to address, is what my goal was.
Yeah, but
And just because we're doing it doesn't mean we approve of the state enforcing
yeah.
certain things.
No, but they said that we wrote a public letter to the superintendent's office. Our letter was actually
That's-
to the
You're
governor.
right, to the governor. Okay. 50, yes, start school this fall.
Opening the schools for the new year in August is absolutely paramount, all caps. No suggestions at this time, none. Put the needs of our students above all else and open school as it was before in the fall. One size does not fit all, and the harm being done to students through distance learning will forever cost the success of many.
I mean, I can totally see their point. I had a community member call me today and say, I'm worried about these kids that were already struggling before we go to online learning, and now they're, the odds are they're the kids that don't have internet, or they don't have parent access, or they don't have the ability to successfully do online school. I have all of the capabilities of being a successful at-home online learning parent, to be a successful homeschool teacher. I have failed miserably in many cases. And so for parents that don't have that ability, I hear the pleas of the community. I feel them, I'm saying them as well, but I also know that we're in a position where we can't break the law and we have to follow our leadership. So we're in just a rock and a hard place. I mean, I know people in the community are saying like, go rogue and forget what the governor says. We're Othello. We're going to do our own thing. It's really easy to say when you're not the one liable for something that could be a disaster. I mean, anyway, I hear the community. I'm with you. I want to go back to school, but we also have to follow the law.
That is definitely a theme. Another theme is communication from the board. Communication from the board to the community is lacking.
Okay. Is our monthly news flyer still going out?
It has not gone out for the past couple of months. However, that's something that I talked to our new director that's coming in about, is starting that back up. So I
Okay.
can see that as a theme as well.
Yes, and last year, I think we had this discussion at the retreat also too. And I think we talked about the president putting a message in that newsletter at the same time too, which Rob was the president at the time. And I know he said he'd work on it, but maybe that's something that we need to bring back again and have a message in that same newsletter from the president of the board.
We could always do, if there's 5 of us in 12 months, if the president does 4 a year and everybody else does 2, that hits 12. So once a quarter from the president and then 2 other board members for the other 2. You know, if we only had to think about what have we been doing for the last month, or what new updates or changes or whatever, I don't think that's too much. I think that that's a lot for one person to ask one person. And then our voice and our individual styles and things are going to be out there a little bit more as well.
I also think, to your point, Jen, I noticed that things get shared on social media a lot, especially if it's a video. So maybe we not only write a little blurb in the newsletter, but then we say that blurb on like when we had Talia record us for our scholarship. And then that's something that we could be shared on our OSD Facebook page and Instagram, and that could be shared out. Just the basics of what we're working on and whatever it is that we put in the newsletter. I mean, it doesn't have to be huge, but something that could be shared throughout the community easily.
And have a Spanish version, not subtitles, but a voiceover. Thank you. And to also have that in Spanish, not captions. I don't want it captions. I want like someone saying a voice over the top of our voice so that it doesn't have to be read, but it could be heard and understood. It is, I mean, sure, captions too, but I think it's more important to have the words said with the audience we're hitting.
I wanna go back to question number 6, or comment number 6. I believe they do an evaluation of the superintendent. However, it is not an accurate evaluation. The decisions made in the school district are made by the superintendent and not by the elected board members. The elected board members are there for show only. I hope I'm not here for show only, guys. I don't know how we fix, I mean, how do we, there isn't an EL, a policy that doesn't get approved by us, or there isn't a curriculum, there isn't a monetary or financial situation that doesn't go through the board.
Maybe it's a perception misunderstanding. I'm not muted in this case. We hire the superintendent to do a job. The superintendent runs the day-to-day operations of the school district. We are not here to micromanage, in this case, him.
and we give him parameters and rules with our policies. These are what you have to operate within. We write the policies. We're trying to approve a new policy. We modify a policy if we feel like it was misunderstood. And so I think that maybe that is more of the misunderstanding here. And maybe that's not the case, but the superintendent is the operation. The board is the policy. That is not just a policy governance thing. That is statewide. That is what a school board's responsibility is, to write policies and make sure those policies are being followed. The superintendent's job is the day-to-day operations, and for us to let him do his job. Otherwise, why would we pay him?
I just want to say to that point, none of us in here, to my knowledge, have a doctorate in education. If you just look at just Dr. Hurst and his immediate team, his executive team, they all are very highly educated in the things that they are in charge of. That's why they have been hired. My degree, my education, my expertise is not in a school district education. And so we are the board, and we, like Jen said, put the policies in place, but the day-to-day stuff is why our district has hired professionals and the best in their field. That is their job. So they follow our direction. And like you said, we don't micromanage every piece of gossip and every he said, she said, and every she wasn't happy at work yesterday. Like, that's not part of what a board does, even if it's not just a school board. Any board of directors that I've ever had any experience with is the same.
Anything else we need to discuss on the community or anything else?
I know I got a check mark on number 17, Jen.
That's right. Oh, we wanted to have a conversation. I wanted to have a conversation about how can we hear the silent majority? And someone else a couple of times said like open floor discussions. That's not how to run an appropriate meeting and not allow us to get our work done. But also that they felt like we needed to have more time for public comment. We've never hit our 30-minute mark. And in fact, we took that number out of our policy. 3 minutes should be enough time for someone to express their view to all 5 of us. They have plenty of options, and I know that all of us would take a personal one-on-one or 2 board members on one conversation with a community member. If that was ever given the option to us, I've never said no to one. So how can we better hear the silent minority? I think that all politics in the state, in the nation, hear it. How can we make them engage, share their views without asking every single person we come across? I'm on school board. What do you think?
I think it's just like the survey. When you're disgruntled, you have something to say. When you're not disgruntled, you're like, I think things are going good. I mean, I don't see anything to complain about. Maybe I'm a little frustrated with the bus schedule, or maybe I'm frustrated with the parking lot, but is it enough for me to come and make a comment at the school board meeting? No, like, it's just life stuff. So I don't know how to get the silent majority to speak up more without feeling like we're just looking for a ton of attaboys, because that's what the silent majority, I feel like, is saying. They might have a little complaint here or there, but they feel like we're doing a good job, and we see it. We see, I guess for me, I see the positive feedback and the silent majority making their voices heard when we go and do site visits, because you have parents show up and the majority of the parents' comments are positive, at least in the small experience that I have had. The loud majority is on social media or, coming to the meetings to voice their disgruntledness or whatever they're not happy with. And honestly, with a lot of people like that, It doesn't matter who's on the school board or who is the superintendent or who their child's kindergarten teacher is, nothing will make them happy. So I agree with that comment. We don't always have to cater, and we shouldn't have to cater to 3 loud people or to 4 loud people when we've got a community of 10,000 people and the majority is happy with what we're doing, or none of us would be sitting here because we are all elected officials.
And I think you make your point about the silent majority. When they do want to make themselves heard, they do show up. And the preschool was a perfect example of that, with how many parents showed up to that preschool. That was the most we've ever had, probably combined with the previous 4 schools. And they do make themselves heard at the time when they really feel it needs to be done.
So we had 54 people answer the survey as a whole and 54 comments. Was it they had to answer something? So if that's the case, then there were 18 that were like not applicable, no, period, X, something like that. 18 of 54. I gotta do the math on that one. Can you pull that one out? 33% basically just didn't answer. Or if it was a mandatory thing that they had to get past, a third didn't say anything. And just like you said, and some of them are, and they're short for the most part. These are very short, especially compared to superintendent comments. So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that was the easier one of the 2 that we have to discuss tonight. Moving on, we will now go through the school board survey that was sent to the staff. We'll begin, Jen, by reading the questions and comparing this year versus last year. Chris, do we know how many answered last year by chance?
I can check.
As I know, I see 189 on the first question. Question number 1, I believe the school board puts the needs of students above all else.
Oh, I just need to scroll up and I deleted it thinking there was another one. Sorry. Okay, here I am. Am I muted? Because I deleted
No.
that clip. Okay, thank you.
You're good.
This year weighted average is 3.3. We did not use that question last year.
The board takes time to learn about issues facing schools through actions such as seeking input from community staff and students.
This year is 3.2 and last year was 2.6. So we've increased by 0.6.
The board ensures its decisions are communicated to those affected by them.
This year is 3.1. Last year was 3.07.
The board keeps informed about what children are learning through reports of scholastic achievement, vocational programs, and the impact of extracurricular activities.
This year's 3.3, and we changed how they could answer them. So last year's numbers.
I believe the board participates in professional development opportunities available at regional, state, and national levels.
This year was 8.0. Last year, we changed how they could answer it.
I have read through the board's ends policies.
This year is 5.3. Last year, we did not ask the question, but what was that on the community? 4.8 from the community, and staff is 5.3.
Okay, this also brings a little concern because this is staff that's given us this survey. And it says, I have read through the ends policy. This is staff.
Only 50% have
Yes.
read through the ends policies, the big 3 goals for the entire district.
Yes, that really concerns me from that.
That's a perfect first topic for your first thing, Mike.
I feel the board's end policies reflect the values of our community.
Can I say something? We may want to consider it classified because I know we do a lot with our certificated staff. We went over, so we sit down with the certificated staff and we go over like the district scorecard, so they know the ends, but I'm not sure if we're doing it with the.
You're muted.
classified.
And keep your hands down.
So certificated staff, we do a really good job of going over with them throughout the entire year, the OSD scorecard, because the OSD scorecard is broken down into each of those ends. So they know specifically what those goals are and what our metrics are. I'm not sure if we do a really good job with our classified staff in doing that.
And I did get a call from a classified staff member when they were doing the survey. They asked me, where are the end of policies at? So I directed them through the school webpage onto the school
Yes, I
district
would see the
portal.
work.
And unfortunately, it's about a 4-step, 5-step process in order to
Yep.
get there. It would be nicer if those ends were part of our main part of our page.
Yep, got it.
Even one ends once a quarter, just was in one of those cycle things where there's like 5 things that it cycles through or something.
I was just gonna say, when you said to Mike, that was a good thing, maybe in our first letter that we send out, once we have our new director and we're ready to go with our messaging, our ends goal can be part of that newsletter, not just what Mike says, but so that people actually can see it written out in text and all of that kind of stuff, and then Mike can go expand on it. Just a thought.
No problem. Are we at 6 or 7? I feel the board's attendance policies reflect the values of our community and understand the direction the board wants to take our district.
This is a 1.8 and the community had 1.7. So I think maybe we should look at these percentages.
Again, the big one there is, I don't know.
Can you scroll down just a smidge so we can see up, I guess? Thank you. 41% said, I don't know.
I think that's true. I have had several community members say to me, we used to have like this vision of where, and maybe it has more to do with facilities than necessarily our ends policies or anything to that effect, but maybe they need to see some sort of, here's our 5-year goal and here's our plan. I mean, anytime you set like weight loss goals, that's what I specialize in. I never follow through, but I always set them. And it's like, if I want to lose, if you want to accomplish this, then what are you going to do at like your 1 month mark and your 3 month mark and your 6 month mark to hit your 1 year mark? If we were able to set some clear goals so that our community knows the direction that we want to go and kind of our steps to get there, maybe that would help them feel like they're a little bit more involved and they have a clearer picture of even getting on board with a bond in the future and all of that kind of stuff, if they feel like maybe they're in the know of the direction we're heading.
151 last year and this year is 189. Well, that's good. I'm sorry, how many certified to classified staff do we have? Is it like a 50-50 mix?
50-50.
Okay.
So the last part, that I don't know, we added that on this year, didn't we?
All it says is
On the
this
survey.
question was not included. We didn't
Okay.
even ask this question last year. Because we referred to ends, but we never said, do you even know what our ends are
Yes.
from last year's thing? So
A board member has shared information with me personally that I know should have been kept confidential.
are we on number 8?
Yes.
This year is 1.7 and last year is 0.8. This is the lowest answer this and last year.
I think I'll pause a little bit just to remind ourselves how crucial this is. The confidentiality portion of our roles here. We need to be mindful of that.
I've looked into this at one point.
But what do the other person perceive as confidentiality? What we may know that wasn't a confidential answer or something that we gave to somebody that we know it was open to the public, that person still may perceive it as confidential. But No, so it's a there's a perception there of, especially in this question, and how they got their answer, how they perceive what confidential was.
Dan, we can't hear you.
Unmute.
Am I muted? Am I unmuted? I can't see the screen.
No.
so
You're muted.
I'm still- Oh, crap.
Thank you, whoever sent me that little button. So I've had someone say, what was it that they shared? This person is sharing private information and on the public, out in the public and on Facebook and all these kinds of things. And you guys, I know that was a private conversation or executive session or something like that. And I said, everybody knows what we're talking about. Doesn't mean that we're sharing it. It means that it's kind of obvious what we're talking about. Like when we were discussing CBHA, let's use that as an example. The whole community knew we were discussing it. It didn't work out because of one reason or another. That part is still private and confidential. But everybody knew we were looking at it. So in some cases, it's a perception thing, but to have that perception and to have those numbers, only 8% thinks that nothing has been shared. Oh, wait.
The opposite.
Okay, sorry.
You're doing a good job.
Yeah.
Is what the numbers say.
Sorry.
Right?
Number 9, the board explicitly examines the downside or possible pitfalls of any important decision it's about to make.
This year is 3.1. Last year was 2.99.
The board shows an awareness of the impacts its decisions will have on the students, staff, and community.
Same answers. This year is 3.1. Last year was 2.99.
The board has formed committees that include staff and community representatives and allows them to report their findings in board meetings.
This year was 8.5 and last year was 5.17. So more than a 3% jump. Probably because we had a recent committee and we hadn't had a committee for a couple of years, but anyways.
The board withstands the pressure of special interest groups.
This year is 2.8 and last year was 2.3. So we've had a 0.5% jump, but in the comments from the community, it was also addressed a couple of times. So, and it's still not a high number. I mean, 2.8 is really not super great, but.
The board devotes more time preparing for the future than it devotes to dwelling on the past.
This year's 3.2 and last year was 3.6. So we have decreased.
The board discusses where the school district will be 5 years from now.
This year's 3.1 and last year was 3.18.
The board conducts an annual superintendent evaluation.
This year is 7.1 and last year was 10. So we've decreased by basically 3 points.
And this is another one of concern where 28% say I don't know yet from staff. And I know every staff member goes through an individual evaluation themselves.
I believe the board is leading our district in the correct direction.
This year's 3.1. We did not use this question. We didn't have this last year.
I believe individual board members issue instructions to the superintendent or school staff.
5.6 is this year, and we changed the way you could answer them last year. This is a yes, no. Last year it was all the options, but it's 50-50 here too.
I am comfortable voicing my concerns either to an individual board member or the board as a whole.
This year is 5.6, and we changed it to a yes, no this year. Last year was multiple options. So, but that is still a low number. I think 70% is low personally. So this year we had 18 questions. Last year we had 29 questions. The weighted average this year is 3.89 and last year was 3.67. So we had an increase of 0.22. And we had more people answer, maybe because there was less questions. But I spent a buttload of time reworking all of these questions. Okay. There's a lot of statements here.
Yeah, there's
Do
actually.
we want to read all 189? Do we want to take a few minutes to like read through them ourselves and see if there was anything they wanted to address? It's 6:30. We're supposed to be here until 8. We're actually further ahead than I thought we would be.
I say we start reading them as much as we can. Unless someone's prepared with specific comments or marked ones.
I think as we're reading them, we need to be cautious that if any employees' names are mentioned too. Just watch out, yeah.
To just not read it, that part out, to blink, to beep it out?
Yep.
Okay.
Our names
We've
are
already read
public
our names.
officials, so we're not immune to that.
Jen, I have one question. So were you involved with changing the survey from last year?
Yes.
Oh, okay, okay.
So,
I didn't understand.
I
that
was
part.
frustrated with how long it was. I felt like it was way too long of a survey when you're going in and answering all
Okay.
those questions. And I proposed changes and we as a board approved the changes, and instead of all of us spending hours at
Right,
meetings and going back and forth, because there were a lot that were basically duplicates, and we wanted to have them all be in a positive. So last time, some of them positives were high and positives were low. And so I was like, this isn't apples to apples. So we changed it so that they were all, we wanted higher numbers across the board so we could compare year to year.
Okay.
So yeah.
Okay.
I did that with the staff one, or the board self-evaluation had 65 questions last year. I also did
Oh,
that one.
Okay.
And as a board, it was right after last year's thing, and I kept me occupied
Okay, thank you.
for the summer.
So we'll do the same thing. We'll 5 at a time. I'll start this off again.
What if we did 10? There's so many.
10? That's
Yeah.
fine. Let's do 10. None. For a lot of these questions or statements, I don't know the answer. Maybe they are being done, but they are not being effectively communicated to the general public. I know the board is supposed to review the superintendent annually, but I don't know if they actually do. Maybe a yearly report to the community. We know very little about what they do and less time on retreats.
So far, all 3 of these questions have been, I'm sorry, 2 of the comments have been referring to the community and the public, not staff. Even though this is the staff survey, is interesting.
Mhm.
So,
NA, it is my job to search out answers if I have concerns or questions. I have no suggestions. Just keep up the good work. None. Please inform the community of the vision that you would like to see take place. Long-term, how many portables versus class wings and the constant moving of them rather than a permanent, nice-looking building. That improves the value of our tax dollars you spend, that you take from my wallet, time and hard effort. More staff meeting visits that allow teachers to ask questions, maybe have questions submitted prior to the meeting so the board members have the ability to properly respond.
Staff needs more support as teachers for non-classroom related issues. It is very hard to get basic things done in the district for a teacher. Every paper or task requires a teacher to become an expert and know everything. This is lack of a person that can have set time to improve the quality of teaching, keeping teachers up to date with pay, raises, certification, clock hours, and many other things. Many staff members pass work on to another who help is asked and then leads to dead ends.
I want to make a comment about that one. I've had a lot of teachers come to me after we did the last contract and say, well, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And I said to so many teachers, have you read your contract? That's in your contract. That's addressed. And it's long. It's really long. Maybe read it when there's new big changes or something, or have them be able to say, here's the new updates or something. Any employee should know their own pay raises, certification, clock hours, and some of those things. I'm concerned that that's an issue. Am I the only one that's seeing that as
There's no accountability for their own, I mean.
I was concerned for this person, not just this person, but if that's a district-wide thing, then that's not a board issue. I think that that's a union issue, personally, and maybe I was just really concerned with that comment. So.
Please do not let your personal or political beliefs dictate how you address school issues. I feel like some board members are more concerned about what the voters will think than what the right is for our students. You need to put the students' education first, not the voters who are not involved in current education or know what is best for our students. I feel that some board members have personal agendas to get rid of some programs. I don't have anything at this time. NA, come visit a classroom more than once a year. 1 or 2, not a group of 10. Sit down and talk to the kids and see what they are doing. None at this time. I do not have any suggestions right now. Hire certified teachers instead of long-term subs.
We need a superintendent who cares about our budget and our staff. With rational leadership, people will respond more positively.
Ken, you're on mute.
And communication issues will likely resolve themselves. Thank you to the school board members for their long hours spent trying to improve our district. None. It is difficult to respond to some of these questions because I lack the information on whether those things that were asked take place or not. I'm wondering if any answer option could also be not aware. The way the board members know on what they need to be working on. It's sometimes difficult to watch or be present at each board meeting. So it would be nice to get a bulletin or newsletter once in a while with the things they're focusing on. I would also appreciate if all the board members speak on behalf of all the students in the district and not just their own children. Changes need to happen, thinking on all the students, not just for what will benefit their own kids. Board members represent all of our students at O'Fallon School District, and I would like all members to advocate for them and their needs without giving priority to their own kids' needs first. None that I can think of. My suggestion would be for the board to put out bi-monthly newsletters to inform us of issues throughout the district that we would otherwise not know about unless we attend meeting, read minutes. You need to be aware of what happens said behind closed doors with certain directors, even though board isn't supposed to involved in operational decisions. Keep informing of future plans for our district. Continue to inform on decisions that will have an impact on students, staff, and the community. None. NA. I feel like meeting with a staff one time a year does not give a good reflection of what is going on in a building and what we need. I think school board should be more present in the school Meet with teachers in small groups to discuss what we are seeing in the front line of education.
Thank you for all you do. None. Thank you for all you do. I have no suggestions. This is complicated. Thank you for all you do. None. Thank you for all you do. I have no suggestions. NA. No comment. Because we do not have a local newspaper, the use of social media and mailers are their only options. I think since all board members are new to the board, which they're not, but that's okay. The board should seek guidance from past members with more experience to know how to govern in this interesting time. I feel the board should get community input and decisions and not just use the OSPI suggestions or the superintendent's suggestions solely when making important decisions. Maybe a newsletter once in a while that explains things they are working on. Also, using the same people on committees gets the same results. None.
We've had that committee's
That was profound too. It's so muted. Anyways, we've had that comment before, and that is continuously that we're seeing that more, and that's a problem that we need to. I don't know how to change that, but that is been said more than once. Okay, 41. I feel this board does not represent our community. It is a narrow representation of a small group of people who are focused on the interests of their friends, as opposed to all of the students in our community. Open school this fall. Our kids need school. Send a weekly or bi-weekly letter. That's you, Mike. You're sending it twice a week. I think they meant bi-monthly, but that's a lot of time. Bi-weekly letter explaining or informing us of decisions, what they are doing. Talk about meeting to inform those who cannot attend. This survey should have had more I am not aware options. Keep sending emails to keep us informed. I am so grateful for district-wide preschool. There is always room for improvement. Thanks for all your efforts. None at this time. Unknown at this time.
I think it was supposed to be district-wide preschool.
Yes.
51. I think the board does about all they can to inform people. People have to be willing to search out the contact. And I have no additional suggestions. And community letters with minutes of the meeting. And no suggestions at this time. I believe they are doing their best. None at this time. Unsure. I would appreciate agendas and meeting notes and summaries being emailed directly to staff.
Is there an option for us to email, and do we think it would be beneficial to email the agenda to staff the day of a board meeting? First of all, is there an option? That's your question.
Yeah.
Do we, as a board, think that would change things?
I'm not sure it would change things, but it would take this ammunition out of the equation. So I actually think that's a good idea to send the agenda to the staff every time we have a school board meeting.
Would that create a whole bunch of work, Chris?
That just depends on what you mean, because they have.
So they have a detailed agenda and a simple agenda. So if we send out a simple agenda, it just will label all of the items that's listed in the agenda. Attachments is a whole different story.
What if it was a simple agenda with a link to the actual agenda that's already live to the public, that they can go into all of the documents, but a link that they don't have to go, oh, here's the thing, and then I have to click another link, and then I have to click another thing, so that it goes straight to, here it is for the night. My next step of the concern, though, is they're gonna want meeting minutes, and if you look at our meeting minutes, it really doesn't tell you what we discussed. It doesn't tell you what,
Right.
it does say it passed or something, it doesn't. The meeting minutes aren't going to give them any information.
Well, maybe it will. I guess, at least if you give them here's all the information, now you can't say you didn't have any. If, here's all the information, if you want some answers on how this was discussed, tune in or show up. You can watch from home. You don't even have to make a physical appearance. But then it takes the ammunition out of saying, nobody told me anything. I had no idea. Like, you're getting an email every time we have a board meeting. It has our agenda with the link to the detailed agenda. Tune in, show up. Now you
I
can't
do
say-
like that a lot better. I mean, that, right, it takes away the ammunition, and then, like this person said, people have to be willing to search out the contact, and that we do all that we can to inform people. Maybe not 100%, bi-weekly letters would be better, but we're discussing how we can improve. I mean, we want to know how we can improve and so, yeah.
Simple agenda. Send that out.
I agree, yes, with a
Okay.
link if they want more. Where are we at?
That's me.
Am I reading?
No. None at this time. It's me. None at this time. They want things written by the board. None at this time. Continue to keep the public updated and being open with the developments of this district. None. School board members need to be focused on what is good for the entire district, not just one particular school for their own personal agenda or please a small group of concerned citizens. Be more transparent. None at this time. More letters and mail of what is happening in the district, or even more Facebook updates, nor not just only when they think things are convenient for them to post. Not NA.
81. None, NA. Provide a newsletter with a summary of decisions being made and the plans for an upcoming school year. I don't have any. Everyone is doing a great job. That one I'm not even going to read. Monthly emails to staff. NA, spend more time in the school buildings.
So I think when we come up with that letter for the newsletter, I think originally we were talking about the one that goes out to the community. Can we also include that same?
So we talked about writing a monthly letter from the board in our voice to the community and it going out to that monthly newsletter to the community. Can that also, same stuff, be included in the one to the staff? I think that we maybe not just officially said that. I think we probably all thought that, but also something I would really like to know, and this is probably not something you're going to be able to pull out of your magic hat. How much of our staff lives within our school boundaries and how much is outside of our school boundaries? If you need to wait until the next meeting or two to answer that, that's fine. Great.
I just want to say before I read my list, we've been hearing a lot of the same thing loud and clear about them needing to hear from us.
I think the biggest thing I'm seeing out of most of these comments is communication.
Yeah.
A lot of it's communication.
And it's communication with a plan.
Mhm.
They want to know what is our plan. So we've got some work to do with being able to, we're doing better at that. Okay. Doing a good job. I am so tired of getting some new direction, crazy idea on how to deliver instruction without ever having time to fully develop the method they have abandoned. If the district slowed down and allowed revolutionary ideas to fully develop, it would eliminate the empathetic responses of here we go again. And by the way, being able to go to training out of the OSD would be nice. This
Is there
district.
a moratorium on that?
Is there a moratorium on outside of the district, or is there, maybe this person just doesn't have options outside of the district? Okay, I just wanted to address that one.
This district as a whole makes unilateral decisions that affect students, families, and parents via changing program without consulting the teaching experts of whom are affected by such poorly made changes, affecting the teachers' performances, thus hurting the students. NA. A board presentation to the OSD staff would help us better have an understanding of the direction we are headed as a district. So once again, they want to know we got to better communicate our direction. 96 is none. Email, Facebook. Not sure what they meant by that. 98. Sharon represents an important piece of our agricultural community. Be nice if she worried about all kids like she does her grandkids. I am willing to give her time to learn. Lindsay has a lot to learn, but seems to have a good heart. I hope she sticks with the work. Get her a good mentor. Mike represents an important demographic. He is an adequate board member, but at our site visit, he seems to lack strong leadership skills. Get him some leadership training. Jen hasn't recovered from her inappropriate public comment a while back. She seems to target individuals in the system and can't be trusted. Ken was silent during our site visit. He sits silent during the board meetings I have observed. Maybe he says things behind closed doors, but the best thing that could happen is he becomes county commissioner. Sounds like nobody was they were not a big fan of any of us, but that's okay.
But they know each of our names.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I'm sorry, they
And-
know each of our names.
And a little bit about us. So
Yes,
that's
that's a
something.
positive.
Yep. I would like to see our board get rid of policy governance. It does not seem to allow for the voice of the constituency and allows district office employees, specifically the superintendent and assistant superintendent, too much power. I don't have any suggestions. I'm still relatively new to the district and only see the effect of the board on things like approved texts for English classes and hiring of new teachers.
101. As an audience member watching the school board meetings, it is most times cringing to watch. There's a lack of professionalism, lack of structure, and lack of leadership. The president has the inability to pull the remaining board members in when they are speaking out of bounds, not within the ELs. The amount of questioning around operational items, which the board clearly has no experience in, is absurd and so unfortunate. The superintendent hires qualified staff with expertise in specific areas. They should be trusted by the board. Instead, they get asked question after question, which gives the perception that the board does not trust the decision making of administrators or of the superintendent. This decreases morale. It is a new board. I am hopeful with this survey. The board will take the feedback and use it to improve. We cannot have a board that continues to operate in this manner. NA, it would be helpful to keep us posted on plans to adapt during the COVID-19 pandemic. Email, none. Being micromanaged by the administration has myself, colleagues,
Okay. Let me go back to that longer one. There's a lot of NAs. As an audience member watching the school board meetings, it is most times cringing to watch. There's a lack of professionalism, lack of structure, and lack of leadership. The president has the inability to pull the remaining board members in when they are speaking out of bounds, not within the ELs. The amount of questioning around operational items, which the board clearly has no expertise in, is absurd and so unfortunate. The superintendent hires qualified staff with expertise in specific areas. They should be trusted by the board. Instead, they get asked question after question, which gives the perception that the board does not trust the decision making of administrators or of the superintendent. This decreases morales. It is a new board. I am hopeful with this survey. The board will take the feedback and use it to improve. We cannot have a board that continues to operate in this manner. It would be helpful to keep us posted on plans to adapt during the COVID-19 pandemic. Email, none. Being micromanaged by my administration has myself, my colleagues, and students angered and perplexed to the point where you are seeing engagement levels drop. This could not be more apparent when the current situation we face through distance learning. Instead of working with us, we are told what to do when the district mandates whether we agree or not. This is reflected through dismal testing data, staff turnover, and a decrease in school-related involvement from our staff, community members, and students as a whole. we're,
Anything to do with the school board?
no. And our staff turnover rates are lower than they've ever been. So engagement levels, okay, by this person's administration. So I think that this is I'm really reading this as a specific school. And yeah, they probably have been told what to do, whether they agree or not during the situation. Some of that was beyond the district's control as well. Frustrations have abounded at home and at school. So, okay. 109 is none. It would be nice to have more meetings with the school board at each school. It is nice to have them see what we are doing and have some face-to-face time in our environment. It is hard for them to know what is going on at our school when they only visit for a few hours once a year. When we do have that meeting, only an hour or so is set aside when it should really be more like 2 or 3 hours. We all have questions we would love to hear the school board members answer. It takes a long time to get those at most campuses, to get those conversations started. And then it seems like finally when we get started and we're like actually communicating, we run out of time. But, and someone else did say, have them send questions beforehand. It couldn't hurt, but whose responsibility would that be? I don't want to give that to the administration of the building. I don't know if I want to give that to the superintendent and staff to have to deal with. Maybe they could send it to a board email. I mean, that's always an option. They're just, if they email board@othelloschools.org, it goes to all 5 of us. And so maybe an email by the administrator saying, hey, these guys are coming. If you'd like to pre-send questions, then we're starting with something. Because sometimes we just have to be ready with, we're going to start asking you some questions or telling you some information, seeing if there's one school that usually is the only school that's ever like, we're ready and we're here for you. And it almost feels like an ambush sometimes. And that school needs more time every year. But, and it's the largest campus that we have, but I don't think it intentionally feels like an ambush. It's just, there's no time. But if we did 2 or 3 hours, that's not during a school day. That's on not on their time. And so we allot 30 minutes. So if we did it in the evening, would they show?
No.
May-
I'm not sure. I don't know if they would show, but maybe we could really review what our schedule looks like when we do our site visits. I know for me, it's a little redundant, and I understand that they're doing it for the community at the school board meeting, but they spend a lot of time presenting to us while we're at the site visit, and then they come to the school board meeting and present the same thing to us during the school board meeting. So maybe our time would be better spent truly engaging with the staff during that time and leave the presentation time, do a shorter presentation time while we're at the school, and then do the big one at the meeting. Just some, I don't know, if they're feeling like I hate when we're in a situation where we're truly engaging and we're getting some good feedback and it's really like we're in it. And then it's like, sorry guys, we got to move on. No more questions. Like, just, I don't know, maybe we could just revisit what our schedules look like at the schools.
Maybe a question on Mondays when they have late start. Could that be time used for, because once a month we're visiting one school, could that time be used to meet with staff? I know they usually do training, but this is on the same lines. And then when we meet with parents and students, that could be at the latter part or closer to the 9:30 hour. That would give us an extra hour of time to.
I think the only thing with that, I would probably just need to sit down with the union because they told you. Sorry.
I would just ask if I could have the opportunity to sit down with the union, because those are the conversations that we sit down with them about that PLC time, because most schools are using that as directed PLC. or professional learning community time.
And I think that's
Something that's negotiated with the union. So I just want to make sure that I don't cross any lines with that piece and infringe upon their time, but it's a good idea.
Something else is we decided 2 years ago to include Chris and our evaluation of Chris in front of the staff. Because a lot of times the questions are operational, they're not board questions. Maybe just have the executive team and Chris in the back of the room to be able to answer those questions. And we take the full 30 minutes because it was really only 15 to us and 15 to the superintendent or just I know at one point it was just the board and no administration. So they felt like they could actually say something and not be censored or had concerns. I don't have those concerns for people within our district if they address any concern, but I don't know.
Maybe we try a community forum type event in the evening for staff. Those that are interested, we'll set aside the time. And maybe we get it there. Maybe we have two times a year, once a quarter. I don't know. But like, again, taking the ammunition away, making ourselves available. I agree. I mean, modifying our site visit agendas with the reporting time. When they're reporting to us, they're already in class. So it's not like we can recoup that hour and bring the staff back. It would be like, you know what, guys, instead of 7:30, be here at 6:30 on your dime, whatever. And then, that would give us some more opportunity. So it'd be something of looking at, or like I said, trying a community forum for staff and seeing how it's attended or something to that effect. I mean, it's just food for thought right now, but something that might address this.
What if we did some of those staff forums with a specific topic or two? Maybe, I don't know, like the silent majority question. How do we find out more from the silent majority? There is a loud non-majority. What's that word? Thank you. A loud minority that we have, but how do we, or I don't know. And say it's not that you can't bring up other topics, but these are the big questions that we have or something. I don't know. At least we could try it.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely put some more thought to that, as to giving them a venue, an avenue to be able to have more direct access to us, I guess. Because I remember hearing some of the staff are not invited to those meetings with the teachers. Some of the classified and things of that nature. Maybe we do classified one month and certified the next, or something to that effect, and see how those things happen. I'm next. All right, 111 NA. Reminders to school staff about board meetings and times. I think we've kind of addressed that. Awesome service, great service. Thank you for all you do for the OSD. It has been my pleasure to have gotten to know OSD board members personally, and I am very impressed with the quality and integrity of this group. You are in my prayers, especially during this time of COVID-19. God bless and stay safe and healthy. None. Everything is fine so far. Just remember to do something about that 20 minutes we lost this year.
What?
I'm talking about the time at the very end of the school day.
So we had to negotiate with OEA the last 20 minutes. So remember when we added the art teachers to all the elementary schools, and then it infringed upon elementary school teachers' time. So they felt that they had lost some time, or actually gained more contact time with students and lost contracted time. So we had to negotiate that time with OEA. So we are working on that issue right now as we speak.
So does that mean teachers are getting paid less because they didn't work that 20 minutes?
No, no, they're not. I think it's a debate right now with, I'm not sure if you met Steve Lindholm or not. He's a UNICEF rep. He works with our union president, Lauren, and then also Chad. So there's a debate that he feels that we owe the teachers 20 minutes extra time. But what we've been able to tell them is, if you look at the whole contracted day, we don't feel that we owe teachers that 20 minutes. So, but we think it's going to be resolved.
No suggestion, none. Informative notifications through email is good enough.
None at this time. I feel like the most part that the board wants what's best for the children. Appreciate that they do not seem to bow to special interests. None. From watching the meetings on the YouTube, it is obvious there are 2 board members that seem to have an agenda towards the superintendent. I find this upsetting. I feel that this issue needs to be advised or addressed within the group. Visit your schools more often instead of once a year. Diversity, how to get your information from our schools and community. None at this time, new to the district. They need to be more professional and confidential. I have not had a board member express confidential information to me, but I have been told information by others that came from a board member. I also believe that they need to keep personal dislike and personal agendas against administration and staff to themselves, work as a unit for the good of all of our students, staff, and community. None, any decision made but that affects the staff and the students. None at this time.
I think we need to address 124. 2 board members that seem to have an agenda toward the superintendent. I'm not sure how to address this.
I guess I don't really understand, meaning an agenda in favor of the superintendent or in favor against the superintendent? Like an agenda in propping him up or an agenda in tearing him down? I wasn't sure how to communicate that or how that was meant to be communicated.
That's a good point.
I'm just going back to try to think of a meeting when anything like that would have happened, that there was a direct relationship, where we were putting Dr. Hurst down in the meeting. I know there's been several meetings when we've questioned not his decisions, but some of the stuff, and I realize it was more operational and stuff, but some of the questions was probably more for information than it was for direction. And
we did have a comment about us getting involved in operational things. Not even on unmute. Yeah, sorry. Dang it. We did have in one of the comments, it talked about us overstepping and getting involved with operational. I know of a meeting where that happened, where I myself was included in overstepping my bounds in what is operational versus what is policy governance. And yeah, for me, all I can say on that is this is a learning curve, and I'm not making an excuse. I learned where I overstepped, and I'm trying to improve and trying to not have that be an issue again. So if Mike could just hold everyone accountable, that would be really nice. Just kidding, Mike.
No, and my response to that is sometimes, although operational, I think it's healthy. I thought I did a good job to where it really crossed the line whoever it was themselves would say, I know this is operational, but I had to ask it anyway. Can you tell us the next time? I know this isn't on the agenda, stuff like that. But no, I mean, good feedback. Being the president of a school board is a learning curve for myself. And I'm trying to do the best I can. So no, definitely, we can try to do a better job.
Well, and also, Lindsay, we've all gone operational before, either because we were inexperienced and didn't know yet and didn't understand, or because it was just an issue that, not that we can't go operational. I mean, we could make our policies so that we're as operational as we want to be, way more than we are now, but,
And
sometimes we could. I'm not saying we are going to. We're not. I don't want to. Anyways.
and some of it I don't look as us actually getting in and doing the operations. Like I said, it's gathering information because we're questioned all the time from the public, and it's nice to have those answers. So sometimes what's perceived from staff as being operational is information gathering. So we could, something I've definitely seen between the evaluate or the questions and responses from the community and questions from the staff. The community wants us more involved in the district, and the staff wants us less in the operations. So it's a matter of gathering the information and getting it out there to them, right? We're at 130, 131. None at this time. NA, I have none. Keep it up. NA. Send out more notifications on important changes in the district. I regularly watch the board meetings, and student and the community views are considered. Teachers and staff views are frequently skipped over and left out of the conversation. There are huge confidentiality issues with two of the board members sharing information with a well-known community member who does nothing more than stir up the pot, gossip, and bring out our city and district town. Communication in the areas of the district, all departments. J, feel the board allows the community to give more input and also allows all community members to view what is being discussed for the present and the future of our students. And maybe a newsletter or updating Facebook more.
Can we go back to 136? So board meetings, students, and community views are considered. Teachers and staff are frequently skipped over and left out of the conversation. There's not really a way, I guess I can see that point of view, because teachers and staff don't really have opportunities to come before the board and talk to us and to express their views. We have students on the board. And so maybe that's when we're getting students' input. And we have occasionally had students come and give public comment as well, or express concerns or issues that they're experiencing. But we have administration come and share what's going on in their building. Sometimes they bring teachers and staff with them. We don't always have that. We don't dictate who they bring. I think that we're hearing not just from staff, but also from teachers, that their views are not, that we're not considering and listening to them. And another issue with confidentiality things that's been brought up. So, okay. Sorry, Lynn.
No, you're fine. I can't not say something about the end of 136. When it says sharing information with a well-known community member who does nothing more than stir the pot, gossip, and bring our city and district down. I don't think that that's any secret to really anyone in our community or people involved in the school district, that there are a couple of the loud minority that do say things. And I am as guilty as anyone at letting that drag me down, but I guess what I'm thinking is just to keep perspective that it's just one or two people that are constantly stirring the pot and saying mean things, and when they go low, we go high, right? Dr. Hurst, Michelle Obama. Anyway, okay, 140. Maybe a newsletter or updating Facebook more. A monthly newsletter informing district employees of the work that is being done by the board. None. Our Hispanic families need to be more included in the work of the board. They are often left out or simply thought about. They make up the majority of our community and should be more included. I totally agree with that. Yeah, we got to do better for our Hispanic community.
What if we had a Spanish only forum where we had the translators? Mike, you don't need a translator. You'll we all had the headsets ourselves and experienced a meeting with headsets. I mean, you see people come to a meeting with headsets and you think, oh, that's difficult. Or sometimes we're at a parent meeting and Mike will just give us the gist of what's being said because the translator's just trying to survive in the meeting. I think that would be totally fair for us to say this is a Spanish only meeting and us to deal with the headsets and have the district translator translating for us and
Give us a little insight.
you know,
Yeah.
that's so, and it's a totally valid point.
Yeah.
We didn't make this survey available to them or available in a way that they could come and get it.
Yep.
I agree. We need to be better
Yep.
about that.
Agreed. 144, no comment. 145, no comment. I don't know. I don't have any, no comment. Continue putting board meetings live on Facebook. Thanks for doing that. Please continue to keep the classroom sizes down K through 1. Just to go to the Facebook meetings live, like I said earlier, that when we share things on social media, I feel like they get shared by several employees, board members, community members. Is that, I know we switched to YouTube because it better suited our needs for the video quality or whatever. Is there any way that each week that could be available to share? Or I guess maybe if we're doing our board newsletter, maybe that's enough. I just know I've had people say to me, when it was on Facebook Live, I watched it a ton. Now that I have to kind of go searching for it on YouTube, now I don't watch it anymore. So, I mean,
You can share Facebook, you can share YouTube videos on Facebook. Maybe what we just need to say is after it's been uploaded to Facebook, to YouTube, then someone shares that link on Facebook. Again, turning off the comments because that was a specific reason why we did not, and also on YouTube, the comments are also turned off because our concern was that community would make a comment there thinking that they would get an answer from school board. And that's not where we want to have conversations. We want to have conversations in public comment in a school board meeting. We felt like if you want to make a comment, then either you contact us individually or you come to a meeting and talk. And it's other people that we're answering, sometimes not always correct, sometimes not the silent minority we're answering. And no, the loud minority were the ones that were answering.
Right.
And that was frustrating. So I think that's a great idea. We can always share the YouTube on Facebook and just make it. So is that something we all are good with?
I think so.
If their district Facebook page shared our meetings each
Yes.
Tuesday morning or whenever they get it put together.
Usually the next morning, they have the video ready.
Perfect. And then we as individuals can share that the post that was made by the district to kind of try and get more outreach so that people know what we're doing.
Well, I even shared on I think it was on my personal page saying, hey, we're at tonight's board meeting, we're going to discuss options for schools starting next year. You should watch. And luckily, I'm friends with Rigo. He actually put the link in there because I was like, I have no idea how to find that. He put the link in there to the meeting, and then I could say later on, we discussed this at 40 minutes. So go to 40 minutes in. And then there was comments from that. So you're right. We could choose whether we share it ourselves on Facebook.
I feel like you're super good at doing that. I am not always
I need
good
to be
about,
better, actually.
I'm good at
Thank you.
sharing things. I'm not good at reminding people when we're doing things and all that kind of stuff. So, but anytime you post something, I try to share it, what I see of you posting and things like that. So yeah, if the district will post it, I feel like the more people we can reach, the better.
I think you're right. I think that that's a great way to accommodate still having a YouTube, but getting it out there. Yeah. But still keeping the no comments on Facebook, because we don't want people to be able to think that they're going to get a response. 151, unsure. I think the board is doing very good. Status of attaining a new warehouse for food service. Communication is the key. Facebook is not the only form. Many people do not use that or any other form of social media. Consider reaching out by other means. Also being more involved in the schools rather than one time a year. Going into the buildings for 90 minutes, it's more like 3 hours, does not mean the board is involved in the schools. But that's a continual comment that we're seeing, not more than once a year. And I do agree, Facebook's not the only form. So we've talked about when we do have a monthly message, by mail to the community, by email to the staff. We could also have it shared on Facebook. But we need to, I feel like in many cases, we use Facebook as our sole thing. And even in one of our policies, it says multiple forms.
I agree on the Facebook issue. I've had some people recently contact me on this last survey about they don't have Facebook. They're not doing Facebook. And I could understand that why, especially in the last month or
3
so,
months.
Facebook
Get on.
has been an area I really don't want to get on to.
Yeah.
It's been so depressing and everything else that you see so much negativity. And I agree, we need to look at some other avenues besides Facebook, because
that would be great to have that addressed with a new PR person, not just a board issue, a district issue as well. I think just so that that's in the wheelhouse and being aware that that's not only an EL, but a concerned issue from comments. Okay, I think we're on 155. I believe the school board needs to look at our school district's data before jumping on bandwagons. I feel some board members try to sabotage what we have been trying to build the last few years to improve our community. We have a great superintendent that has our students' best interests in mind. Now some board members are trying to do away with successful programs like preschool. It makes me sad. They try to attack things they do not know anything about. I feel we need young, open-minded people on our school board that understands these new ideas of the future of our school. I think that's you, Lindsay. I think you're the youngest. You're the young, open-minded people.
I also don't know what I'm doing.
I was being snarky. Not closed-minded people who want to live in the past. These students are our future and need to be given the best possible instruction to help them be successful. Dr. Hirsch has done this and has encouraged this for our students and staff at Othello School District. An email to parents with information from board meetings would be nice to stay informed. Another one of those. Some people are talking as employees and some people are talking as parents from this evaluation. And sometimes it's hard to separate yourself when you're both. I completely understand with that. None. With the new board members, it will be nice to get to know them more. I really don't interact with the board, so it's nice when they come to the school. I don't know. Board is doing a great job.
$161. Please remember that people who share concerns often or who are loudest are not always the majority. Sometimes the majority is silence or not included in the conversation. Make more contact with classroom teachers. Stop the intrusive entourage type visits where the board and cabinet parade through buildings and classrooms. What good does this do except disrupt learning?
That's been mentioned more than once. I mean, if we made it 4 or less, visit, 4 or less people per group or something. I think we need to revamp our visits to the campuses, either multiple things. How, the frequency, who we're visiting with, how long we're visiting them.
Who's directing the conversation? 'Cause I heard you say.
Yes, I'm gonna write all this down. Okay.
Take action on items that need to be addressed. It seems that the board takes too long to make actual decision. The school board should act and be held accountable to be professional at school board meetings. Often there are specific board members that interrupt and ask questions just to ask a question, already knowing the answer. Some board members seem to only worry about their own agenda and their circle of friends. None and none.
Spend
Do
more
we
time
need to
talk-
address 168? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
There are multiple pointed, specific things. Sometimes we're so frustrated that these are not specific enough. That is very specific and spelled out for us. We're not taking action. We take too long to make a decision.
I mean, I can understand why they feel like we take a long time to make a decision. Sharon and I have only been on the board for 6 or 7 months now. And it seemed like even Sharon made a comment in one of the meetings, like, how many times do we discuss the same thing? Like, it felt like it took us a really long time. I understand we were doing our due diligence before we approved the parking lot fix and before we approved the track. But I can see from their perspective, looking in, feeling like, what is taking so long for you to make a decision? Like, it felt like and maybe that was because Sharon and I were new, or we're just trying to, I don't know, but I can understand the frustration. We took too long to make several decisions, in my opinion. It got drug on for ever.
I think spending the people's money too. We're a little bit apprehensive of making those decisions too soon because it's the town, the people's money.
We did have 2 new people. Politics moves really slow at the top. It does feel, even for Mike and I and Ken, I'm sure we're like, oh my gosh, I've gone home many times and said, could we just make a decision? Or I've proposed this policy months ago. But sometimes when you only meet twice a month, I'm not proposing that we meet more. We already meet more than that. I don't disagree.
Perception is that, but I think all of us in this room know that, or I think we should be on the same page. None of us drag our feet on purpose. As easy as some of these things seem, okaying 650, whatever it was for the track, we knew it needed done, but we got to go out and get these bids. They need to be done a certain way. They need to be open a certain amount of time to a certain amount of people. So it's not like I'm building a track at my house. I'm going to go talk to ABC Construction. You're going to charge me this much and do it tomorrow. I just hope the public understands that we don't delay things purposely. Like Sharon says, some of these things, tax dollars are weighing on you and what they're going to say and what they're going to think. I never go to a track. Why should I be part? There's a lot that goes into this, but I think we do well when it comes to that because none of us purposely drag our feet or delay or procrastinate. But at the same time, I can understand how, it's easy for someone to think it's simple. So we'll continue to do our best, I think.
I do feel like they're at least referencing me in some way when it says interrupt and ask questions, just ask a question already knowing the answer. Yes, I and others of us might have the answer already beforehand that we came up because with the answer, with the question already and sent it on so that the district has an opportunity to answer the question. And sometimes it's about our community needs to know more things and understand more components of this before a decision is made or a vote is made. And so, yeah, we might know these answers already, but the public doesn't. And we're answering to the public. And so sometimes that's done. That's often done. There is a purpose behind that.
Exactly like I said earlier, sometimes these questions seem like operational that we're asking, but it's because we've been asked and our public likes to know. So sometimes that's the area where the public gets their answer.
This person is knowledgeable though about watches meetings. They're obviously, they watch meetings and they know what's going on, and that is great. So, sorry.
Sharon?
That's okay. Ready? Spend more time talking to teachers. 30 minutes before school once a year is not enough. I like reading the school board agendas in the school board portal. No suggestion. I feel informed. Some school board members need to set aside personal agendas that they have. Not a suggestion, but please know that my answers reflect the board as a whole. Some members would rate substantially higher, much lower for others if evaluated individually. None, NA, NA.
Gymnasium lunchrooms at the elementary schools, but haven't heard anything in months, especially in the pandemic situation. We are in now. A monthly newsletter from the board would be nice. Again, that's communication. A lot of things have been.
Well, I know that was extensive, but I honestly feel that there is some direction there in some way, shape, or form. There are some ideas that we will absolutely look at. Some harsh criticism came with that. But I think overall, we as a board don't shy from these things because all we want to do is make ourselves better. But I need to commend all of us. I think our time and effort into what we're doing here is valuable. Do any of us claim to be perfect? Absolutely not, but we are doing the best with what we got and what we can. So I beseech us, I urge us to continue to do the best. There'll be some stuff that comes from this. Communication, I think, is something that has been loud and clear almost by everyone that took the survey. And yeah, we can expect to make some changes to amend some programs, or not the programs, but agendas at site visits, things of that nature. All those things that are going to just make us better. But I do have to go to bat for all of us and say that, in my opinion, guys, every single one of you is doing a good job, and I commend you for the time and effort that we're expending to serve this community, to serve our kids at the end of the day, to look for what's best for them. There isn't a corporation that is perfect, from the top to the bottom. These things happen. Some of these negative comments, some of this negative feedback. All take is just that, and try to be better. But I do feel that I'm at the defense of you all, or all of us actually. We're doing a great job, I think, and we will continue to improve and get better. Moving on, and thank you to the staff and community for your responses, for your involvement in this. This is how we learn. This is how we get better. We may not always agree on everything, but that is okay. That is all right. Thank you for responding to the survey.
I just have a quick question, and maybe this is directed more at Dr. Hurst. So we've seen time and time again that communication is where we're lacking and we're failing the public. With our new communications director, will he be somebody that we can also rely on to help us get our message out to the community? Or is that something that we need to dive deep in with ourselves and come up with like our own newsletter and our own all that kind of stuff? Is that something that will be managed by him or no?
Absolutely. I've had a chance to talk with Ed. He'll be on board officially July the 1st, so right around the corner. He really wants to sit down with board members, with students, with parents. He's already started some of that electronically with the OHS logo. You'll start seeing him really communicate with the entire community. So that's a big focus that we are really touching bases with all stakeholders, including the board.
Is he fluent in Spanish?
Yes, he is.
Awesome. Mesteco?
I don't think so. He didn't mention Mesteco.
Okay, just thought that would
I
be
know.
awesome.
Yeah, Mistake far stretch there, Jen. All right, moving on, guys. Item C5 is the review annual board self-evaluation survey. I looked at this and we're doing good.
This isn't it. This isn't the self-evaluation one? Oh, yeah, this is the staff one. We need to go down to C5.
C5,
Go on C5.
yeah. Numbers are kind of small, but I mean, our average score for the year on all aspects of our survey is a 4.39. I think we've had the discussion that anytime we're under 4 is where we need to pay more specific attention to stuff. And I know that we do a good job of evaluating ourselves. We've, told ourselves that the board president did this wrong. We took too much time here. We got operational. So it's not like we're not keeping ourselves accountable. And this is, again, part of our hope of transparency. The fact that we do keep tabs on ourselves and are trying to do the best that we can. We do have an annual summative of our GPs and BSRs. I don't know if anybody has any comments there. I mean,
Do we have like a 3-year comparison chart too?
there is that as well, yes.
Can we have that pulled up? I didn't
write down the details from the board. I wrote down a lot of super notes, not board ones. But yep, it's just that short little tiny piece at the top. We're tiny. So in the past, GP8 planning in 17-18, with an exception, 18-19 organization of the board meetings, an exception, and none this year. We were all in compliance.
Again, kudos. Good job, guys. Very good job. Okay, moving on to item D1, upcoming events.
You missed C6.
I thought that was what we just went over, the 3-year comparison.
Oh, So then what was C5? Oh, that was all the tiny numbers.
Yes.
Was C5.
Yeah.
Then what's this school board self-evaluation PDF? We looked at the 4.1, GP 4.1 summary.
That was an actual. This was is this the one that we did on ourselves?
Okay, can we go into that if that just was, no, not that one. That's the tiny print one. There we go. How many answers are here? 35. We don't have a comparison to last year because we went from like 65 to 35. This is our first year taking it this way. We need to go through all of them, I think. What do you think?
You gotta do what you gotta do. And this is the public document. We'll see why we want to go through this.
Okay.
So this is the school board evaluation. This is ourselves rating ourselves. Question number 1. Board discusses and researches events and trends in the larger community that may affect schools and students. 2 of us said frequently, 1 said occasionally, 2 said rarely.
The trends and the events in the larger community, I included things like reports and being aware of what's going on in our community and attending community forums are that we I guess I feel like we're discussing and researching those things. And I read a lot of stuff from OSPI and, I mean, that's our larger community. So up for interpretation, I guess, how to say if we're doing that or doing that, not doing that.
Yeah. Board recognizes the superintendent as the chief executive officer and educational leader of the district. Frequently, all 5 answered. The board meeting discussions revolve around governance, not administrative actions. 4 said frequently, 1 said occasionally. Board communicates its decisions to all affected by them. 3 said frequently, 2 said occasionally. Board keeps informed about what children are learning through reports on scholastic achievement, vocational programs, and the impact of extracurricular activities. 4 said yes, 1 said no. The board stays aware of its debt limitations and sets priorities based on the total financial needs of the system and maintaining an adequate financial reserve. 3 said yes, 2 said no. I think that's a discussion that needs to be had.
I would agree with that. We have a policy that actually says that we have to do this and that it sets a specific percentage limit. I feel like we're within that percentage limit.
We have a set limit, but I don't know if we're really set priorities.
Okay, what would a building priorities? Is that what you're referencing? Or what kind of, I guess, what priorities are you referencing? Or can you give me an example of one?
Well, that's what I'm trying to say here and think, because that's just what popped out at me with the statement right away.
You're muted.
Yeah, just reading through the statement, the set priorities based on total financial needs, that just popped out to me at this question. And I know we've got our minimum fund balance set and stuff like that, but have we really set
priorities?
I feel like we did with, like, in terms of facilities,
Mhm.
we had a conversation about what we can afford right now
Mhm.
and what are the top 3 things that we need to go after. And,
We have for facilities.
okay.
Wise and stuff.
I mean, we did, a while ago, they set the one-to-one initiative where every student has a Chromebook. And we're
Mhm.
addressing that continually, keeping those updated and
Mhm.
current. I feel like that's that's already been a priority that's been set. I guess my opinion is I don't understand. I feel like we have set priorities for financial needs. We have by policies in some cases.
I would go back and reference the minimum fund balance percentage.
Mhm.
The percentage of our budget can go to salaries. The percentage of our reserve again. If anything, I'll go back to the buildings. Maybe that isn't clearly defined, but that, in my opinion, that's all due to constraints or limitations that are outside of our control, state match, and where we can use this and where we can't use that. Are not having land today. I think that affects that. But as far as I was a yes, obviously, on the financial part of this.
Uh-huh. I was too. I just guess I want to understand. I feel like we have set priorities. I do feel like we have an adequate financial reserve. It's okay to disagree. I just want to understand, I guess, the perspective. So your opinion is the priorities predominantly.
Priorities and debt limits. Are we aware of our debt limitations?
You mean like
No.
with bonds? Debt
Well,
limits?
No, not with bonds and stuff like
Or-
that. With our maybe our yearly budget. Trying to find an example.
I think the reason I looked at, approached this is that I think I asked prior at a facility meeting where they were able to save money each year and put it aside. So if you had a major purchase, you had money reserved, but didn't look like to me we were saving any money each year or had any extra. So I didn't know if we were like, that's not the 10%, that's something you have to save. But are we saving anything above and beyond that?
Every year consistently, $1 million to $2 million go into that balance. And so that's why our limit is actually only 6.7 million, but there's more like 10 in there. And so that's because they haven't been overspending and they have been conservative. And so, yeah, of course. So I have we specifically said we want you to keep funneling there? No, we haven't said that, but because we set a number of 10% and we have that 10%. And I guess if we had a specific goal, then, I mean, we did say at one point, we approved to take 5 million out and put it into capital projects. And we hadn't. She has moved some of that so that she's ready for the next few months of paying the bills towards the transportation parking lot that has been repaired, the track that is being started, that's a continual, few months project, and being ready for our next step, which was our next priority in the facilities. There were these 3 big goals. So I'm a yes, but I mean, I could always be changed. My mind could always be changed. I guess I'm just wanting to.
And my purpose wasn't to change any. It just brought up a little more awareness for us all and a few more questions. And I think it says board stays aware of their debt limitations. I think we are aware of our debt limitations and stuff like that. And the priorities, I think this one will really test this one in the next couple years with the state funding And so we really need to be on top of the game with that one and the possible changes that could come down with state funding.
Good
And it's nice
conversation.
to have that reserve in there,
Yeah.
to know that we got that rainy day fund in there too, just in case things go
And
south.
actually that, correct me if I'm wrong somewhat, but that 10% was board imposed. I don't think that's like a state mandate or anything
No,
else.
it's not.
We are at the liberty, if we need to change that, if we run into having to use some of the reserve, we can. But I think that we're being good stewards of taxpayer dollars, and that fund has increased virtually every year that I've been here. So I think we're doing fine
Yeah.
where that goes. But again, opens awareness, Ken. This isn't about changing somebody's mind. We'll just be a little more cognizant of financial stuff, I think. And any questions we may have that we feel aren't being answered correctly, maybe we'll bring them up a little more. Question number 7, at least annually, the board has a retreat to examine its performance and set board goals for the next year. Thus tonight, board members review the agenda and background materials well in advance of meetings. Frequently, all 5 of us said. Board participates in professional development opportunities available at regional, state, and national levels, frequently and occasionally. I think we've all been to WASDA at least once, even the new board members. Yeah. Board assesses its meetings and discusses what the board should be doing differently as a result. 4 frequently, 1 rarely. All right,
It has been a little bit different since COVID hit to be able to do our surveys, and we haven't really been able to. We just say, there's the survey. I think you all looked at it, and we haven't gone through it like we used to. I don't think I was rarely, but it has changed how we do our evaluations. And I mean, 2 people have never experienced a board retreat either. So it's our analytical minds of every single question.
And
Point taken.
remember, our new board members have only been on the board 3.5 months before COVID did hit, and then they were through into this too.
The board assesses, I already read that one. It's been a long evening. Board president goes out of his way to make sure that all members have the same information on important issues. 2 said frequently, 3 said occasionally.
Do you feel like we need to discuss that one?
Yes, I feel we do.
Okay. I can see that
And
on your
it's-
face.
I guess I need an example of where I didn't tell someone that I told someone else, or
I think I'm one of the people that put. Sometimes I feel like that I'm out of the loop on things where I find out things from community members, and it's, people calling me and asking me hard questions, and I haven't been apprised of the situation at all. So I reach out to either you, Mike, or you, Dr. Hurst, and it's a situation that you guys already have a beat on, which is the right thing. I mean, you're the superintendent, so you should have a beat on what's happening. But sometimes I feel like I'm late to the table, which is as much on me as it is on you and me not communicating enough. I wouldn't say that I feel that way 100% of the time. That has just been on a few occasions where I have felt out of the loop.
okay. I will do a better,
Right here.
try to do a better job.
Social distancing.
I know, we're, sorry, I'm freaking you out. I know. Go up to what the question was. There's a phrase, goes out of his way. Maybe that does a good job is different than goes out of his way.
Constructive criticism, I take it. Try to get better for at least the rest of this year.
Yeah, and maybe we need to re-question how that is and maybe do away with that part goes out of his way. Because,
His slash
And-
her way.
yes. Or the board president go out of their way to just rephrase that on how that.
Food for thought for the next year's retreat. Board members are able to hold confidential items in confidence. 4 said yes, 1 said no. We all need to keep the confidentiality portion of our jobs at the top of what we do. Like Jen said, there could be ramifications and we could lose our seat at this board for not complying with confidentiality. Board members are able to speak their minds without fear of being ostracized. 2 said yes and 2 said no.
And one person skipped.
Ostracized.
I guess my concern is, did you need a definition of ostracized? Is that what you're saying?
More specific.
I see.
I looked it up.
Okay. My concern is that one person skipped it and didn't even feel safe to answer it.
But is this being ostracized by fellow board members or is it being from the public? Because there's times when you're always afraid to say something that you really feel in a public meeting because you know what's going to happen from the public.
So Ken, I'm hearing that you're going to rewrite these for next year. That's a great point though.
I can't remember if I answered this or not. I may be one of the person who didn't answer it and it was totally on accident. But I can say yes and no to this. It's always a little unnerving when you have an opinion that you either know the rest of the board is against or isn't a popular opinion with the community. I've struggled with that myself. I feel like you guys at least do a good job of, even if I'm wrong or you don't agree with me, no one has bullied me or tried to make me change my mind or told me or made me feel bad about my decision. That doesn't mean that my opinion always wins in our votes or anything like that, but I feel like everyone on this board is at least respectful to me if I have a difference of opinion. But I don't know if that could have very easily have been me and I missed it on accident. Or maybe it was somebody who intentionally didn't answer it. I don't know, but that's just where I stand with it.
Once a decision is made, the board works together to see that it is accepted and carried out. 3 said frequently and 2 said occasionally. Board handles conflict openly and constructively. 2 said frequently, 3 said occasionally.
Do you want to talk about that one?
I think we should.
I think I was one of the people who voted occasionally. And it was probably because since I've been on the board, and maybe this is true for everybody, but I feel like Sharon and I came on the board and we had some heavy hitting issues right off the bat that came in, and some of it we handled too openly and some of it maybe not openly enough. But I feel like us as a board could do better. And that is myself included, mostly directed at myself on how things were handled in some of the early heavy hitting situations that came on.
You're right. We did. We kept holding off on big decisions, waiting for the election. And that was, I don't know if that was the best decision for the old board to have made. And it was a huge weight for both of you being new to have to deal with that. I mean, we knew we were going to have at least one new person. And so, but you had said almost too openly we dealt with that. I'm not quite sure I understand what that means. That's okay.
I was more talking about a specific situation that included some issues with staff and an investigation that had happened before we came on board, and then some public comment and just things that's what I mean by happening. We handled too openly that should have went to executive session. And so that's more of where I was coming from with this question, was that situation specifically. We did not handle our best. And I am as
Ditto.
guilty,
I totally agree with that.
like
yes.
just could have been better.
I understand that.
Board questions, administrative proposals requiring the superintendent to defend, explain, or reconsider his recommendations. 3 said frequently, 2 said occasionally. Board is attentive how it reaches its conclusions. 4 said frequently, 1 said occasionally. Board handles issues that are ambiguous and complicated by appointing committees composed of students, staff, and community to conduct in-depth research and expects them to report their work at board meetings. 1 said frequently, 2, 3 occasionally, and 1 said never.
I was either occasionally or never. I don't remember, but for me, I was speaking strictly on what community members had expressed to me, which was their frustration in the lack of a current facilities committee that had a plan for today. I understand we had a facilities committee in the past, K-8 in the past, but for OSD, where we stand today, moving forward, knowing we're overcrowded, knowing we need a remodel, knowing all of these things, I feel like if we want community involvement and we want a bond approved, it's going to take outreach to several different groups in our community. And that will require us to have a facilities committee that actually can see their work put into motion, would be my ultimate goal. So that's why I voted either occasionally or never, because it hasn't happened while I've been on the board. So I'm only speaking for the 3 months we actually worked hard at this before COVID-19 hit. So, I mean, it's not really fair because it's only 3 months that I'm judging us on. So,
Okay, in your comment, do you feel like that would be beneficial to have a facility committee right now?
honestly, no, because I don't, before this hit, I felt like we were making progress on trying to get a vision of how to move forward before November's election so we could potentially run a bond. Now, knowing that that's not going to happen, I just feel like we need to wait until this rolls over so that we can actually see how hardly this hits our community, how hard it hits our farmers, because otherwise we'll run into the same situation where we're asking people to give hours of their time to show up for a committee and we won't be able to follow through. And so I only want to get serious and ask them to dedicate their time when we can have a real action plan in place.
Great comment, Lindsay. Board shows an awareness of the impact its decisions will have on the community and maintains channels of communication with key community leaders. 2 frequently, 2 occasionally, and 1 rarely. I think we have pretty good open lines of communication with cities, employers in town. I think we try to involve all stakeholders as much as we can. Again, this is
We had linkage
stuff that
arranged. It kind of fell apart the last 3 months. I mean, nobody could leave their home, basically.
foresee this, yeah.
But I'm concerned about the rarely.
I was either occasionally or rarely, I can't remember. I'm sorry. For me, the way that I interpreted this, and like I said, take this with a grain of salt because I've only been on this board for a short time. I would like to see our board work more cohesively with our city council, because ultimately we want the same things. Hopefully, that we want a community that's safe for our kids, that has a good learning environment, so that we are raising kids in our community that are educated and successful and can come back and implement those things into our community. And so I either voted occasionally or rarely because I don't see that cohesiveness happening with either our city council or our county commissioners or our other local church leaders or community leaders to try and come up with, I don't know, something where we're on the same page and attaining the same goal. Sometimes we don't work against the city, but it just doesn't seem like it's a partnership the way that I think it could potentially be.
So Ken, you used to be on city council. There's 9 counting the mayor.
There is 7 council members.
So does that mean that 2 of us could meet with 3 of them without having to call an open public meeting?
Yes.
I would see as part of our linkage, I would like to see part of our linkage look something like that.
Or even all of us and all of them. I mean, that's an open public meeting. We just call it a meeting. But we'd have to have specific,
Topics and
yeah. And I had talked to 1 or 2 city council members and said, hey, I'd like this. And they were like, yeah, that would be awesome. Addressing specific things.
There's a lot of things that we run into, just for example, our property, that we need to work together and have an open line of communications all the time. And I know councils change, boards changes, but we just need to try to keep that open line of communication open. We got to know what each hand is doing, and it affects us when somebody makes I won't say a rogue decision, but a decision that doesn't line up with what our vision is. And it, not just the city council, but we've got some other county agencies too that we need to be closely working along with too. Because ultimately, this is one large community where all of our tax money is the same here. I mean,
I think key was the word that kind of threw me off a little bit. Key community leaders, like, how do you decipher who someone is a key community leader over just a community member? I mean, granted, there are different boards and there are different, but the key kind of threw me off a little. It wasn't.
That's a good point, because my definition of key and your definition of key is not the same. Right. And then would it be beneficial for us to have a conversation with our, to have a meeting with our county commissioners?
Absolutely.
You know, and because I'm sure that there are things that they could share with us, and we would like to see this more, and we're hearing, you know, input from whatever. And so, okay, let me add that to the master list.
I think one of the best meetings I had was when me and Tyson went to the Adams County Development Council, which is one of the key groups for economic development.
There's that
And
word key.
you would be surprising how much time we spent in their meeting. I think we ended up spending almost over half of their meeting answering questions, going back and forth. And it was very informative on both ways.
That is what I would like to see more of. So that is why I voted either occasionally or rarely, because I think, yeah, that kind of linkage is super important in our community.
Board encourages the public to attend board meetings frequently. If the board thinks a group of constituents is likely to disagree with an action it's considering, it makes sure to learn how the public feels before rendering the decision. Again, let's talk about that one because it's pretty split there.
Okay, so there's a couple of ways that the question could be interpreted. Are they finding out about the public's view because of this small group, or are they finding out what the small group's opinion is? Can add this to your list of rework because I don't want to rework them. Either interpretation, are we finding out what the public thinks?
I think I would say frequently, but I'm not sure. I can't remember how I voted, but I would say frequently myself. I feel like I don't talk to someone outside of my family who lives in this community without school board coming up in that subject. So I'm constantly asking people, how do you feel like our superintendent is doing? What do you think of our athletic director? How do you like your principal? How engaged is your children's teacher? What do you think about a new track? What do you think our community, our schools need? So for me, maybe as a board, we're not going to different community groups and asking that, but I never stop asking those questions.
What do you call a number on the size of group? 2 people? 10, 50?
Like I said, my question was, when do you call, what's the size of a group? Is it 2, 10, 50? You know, again, it goes back to the silent majority and the ones that are making the most noise sometimes.
I think we need to make a more concerted effort to turn this into frequently and do our due diligence. Lindsay asks questions. In my case, I get asked the question.
Either or.
Yeah. The board set clear organizational priorities for the year ahead as well as an annual calendar. Yes. At least once a year, the board asks the superintendent to articulate his vision for the district's future and offer strategies to realize that vision. 3 said yes, 1 said no. So, and 1 skipped. I don't know if a no cares to share.
Actually, Chris, when do we do this for you? When do we ask you to do it? Is it a certain time of year, or do we ask you this all the time?
It's typically during the board retreat, so I know Rob and Tony typically.
It's typically during the board retreat, and typically Rob and Tony in the past, and actually the whole board would ask me to share or bring a presentation to share the vision. I know the past few years we have been able to share around sequentially, first around math and ELA, and then we talked about adding PBL and SEL, and eventually it got up to 6. And then we synthesized it down to 3 last year. If the board was to ask me right now, I would say I've already started this conversation around keeping everything as it is, the big 3, but also focusing on cultural proficiency and equity. So if you was to ask me what the focus is going to be next year, I've already started that conversation.
Is that something that you could share your, would you be able to share your vision and have that presentation at the next board meeting?
Absolutely.
Or is that too soon?
No, it's not too soon.
Okay,
I've already started having that conversation.
great.
I think this was I didn't answer because I put it on there and I wanted to think about when we, in our short time, got that information. And then I said I was done and I sent it and I didn't go back. I'm sure that's me because I didn't know.
The skipped or the no?
No, the skipped, I didn't answer it because I was gonna come back because I wanted to think about it, thinking in those few months that we've had a meeting, I didn't know. So I didn't know that if it, you know.
Right, well, I think my first year I put no also because I hadn't seen it yet. And then I was like, oh, shoot, I just got this earlier. I just got this hours ago, so.
Yeah, that's
But,
why.
right, I know that it happens. I just,
You know, and going back and thinking,
Forgot when.
I could have been the no, because I was going back and thinking when Dr. Hurst did present to the board itself. I mean, like you just said, that's a year ago.
Yep.
And sometimes you forget that. But
Sir.
going back when you mentioned that, I think most of us attended the all staff meeting at the very beginning of the year.
Yes, sir.
I think that was a good display of the vision too. So to the whole staff, I have to say there was one there too.
And I would say, can we always utilize that meeting to always go over what the focus is going to be for the year, so the vision.
So mine was a no answer.
Board discusses where the school district will be 5 years from now. 2 occasionally, 3 rarely.
Just in full transparency, I am one that said rarely because in the time I've been here, that has not been a topic of conversation. I said that earlier when we got that feedback from the staff and the community about not having a plan. And that has been spoken to me from community members feeling like we had a plan and that all got thrown out the window. And now there's not a long-term plan. And when I say plan, I mean more than just, we want to raise our scores by 2% or raise this by that, but also having a plan for our facilities so that we don't find ourselves or find the next generation or whoever's on the board 5 years from now in the same position that we're in to say, wow, everything's hitting us at the same time. If we could come up with a facilities plan so that we're doing something every 2 years so that it's not a giant bond once and we're trying to get everybody on board. That is why I said no. We have room to improve on that, in my opinion.
I said rarely, because I was on the facility committee and I don't think that we followed through with what the recommendations were that we gave the board. It was before Lindsay and I were on the board, but what I was seeing and what I'd heard at other facility meetings when I was sitting in the audience, I didn't feel like we wasted our time for being there. Sorry.
So you don't feel like we've moved forward with any of the recommendations that were made, or not enough of the recommendations that were made?
I don't think we started with the top recommendations, that we kind of overlooked it.
What was the number one then?
The number one was the high school, the 600 wing.
And again, that's one of those where all the ducks have to line in a row. Not that we didn't know that there was a problem there, not that it couldn't be an obsolete thing that we're just going to do the 600 wing. It needed to fit in the master plan of everything else. Again, going back to, it may sound clichéic, but it can happen like we want it to happen. And we're looking at 5-10 years from now, perhaps going in there and doing something with 600 rings wasn't going to fit in the overall
Master layout.
and what we were going to do. But no, this is good conversation again. We need to have these plans in place. Hold ourselves to making sure that we don't leave the next board or the next generation with the same things that, we got to pull our hairs out over and have these discussions with.
So we changed the policy of the long range and short-term goals and whatever. We added the life cycle, which probably should have a better word, lifespan or something. Anyways, of the buildings, so that we kind of had like like some terms. And so I think once we get that report, that will maybe hopefully help us to make like here's a 5-year, we're doing these things in the next 5, here's our 20-year, according to that chart that I'm hoping we'll be getting. So in some, and not just the buildings, but like the track at McFarland, is that even something that's still going to survive? Or now that we're doing the track, I mean, the track at the high school was only supposed to have an 8-year lifespan and we made it last 20. So because of not having something like that on, and now it's only going to have like what, 10-year, 6 something. Anyways, what the number is, we need to have that on a document so that we can see, like, and everyone can see, here's our specific plans of these things. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen that year, but and so we can start putting the numbers and the money aside for those things, because track doesn't get covered by the state. That's 100% local. You know, building a new school, that gets some from the state, some from local, you know, so there's, yeah.
So it,
Are those goals from the district? Are those typically 3 years or 5-year goals?
So I was going to say, we actually take the ends that the board establishes, and we actually set the goals based on those ends. So I would say the ends are actually established by the board. And then what we do is we assign the metrics to them. So we assign how many years out we're going to be able to achieve X percentage of students being proficient. So for instance, in ends 1, or how many students we're going to have involved in PBL in ends 2, or increasing attendance in ends 3. But all of the actual indicators are established by the board.
Board uses the ends policies and considers the long-term priorities of the school district when considering EL provisions and additions. Yes. The board is confident that its ends are based on an understanding of the owners and are in their best interests. Yes. The largest portion of our board meetings are spent on reports from the district evaluating the past rather than focusing on the future. My frequently should have been rarely. I fess up to that one. I knew what I meant, but I hit the wrong button, so I would be rarely there.
Ken, you're gonna change this one too.
Ken's the wordsmith.
Sorry, by default, I'm giving it up.
The board has written policies which clearly define for the superintendent in advance what organizational situations the board considers imprudent or unethical. Yes. The board has a process to regularly review its EL and ends policies against any concerns, worries, environmental changes, or new information regarding potential risk to ensure they remain current, adequately protect the organization from inappropriate risks, and consistent with all policy governance principles. Yes. Individual board members do not issue instructions to the superintendent or staff. 2 said occasionally, 1 said rarely, and 2 said never.
Again, backwards written question.
Yes. Board members understand the conversations with that conversations with staff are to not be treated as instruction or evaluation.
Yes.
All 5 yeses, yes. When board committees are created, they are provided with a clear statement of the results the board expects from them and the limits of their authority. Four said yes, one skipped. The board has a process in place to ensure the agenda doesn't get sidetracked. Yes. A consent agenda is used to efficiently handle operational items which a board has already delegated, but that an external authority requires the board to approve. Four said yes, one skipped. When the annual superintendent's evaluation is completed, the board understands that achievement of a reasonable interpretation of ends in compliance with a reasonable interpretation of ELs taken cumulatively over the year is the evaluation with no other additions. Four said yes, one skipped this.
And just for the new board members wouldn't have actually knew because they've never been through the process of doing that. So
All right, well,
But does it say that in a policy somewhere? I think it says that. In
I
a
believe it
policy.
says that we will have an annual review.
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
There's always going to be room for improvement, no matter where you're at, what you're doing. I think our own assessment of ourselves has proven that. And I would just ask that we continue with our commitment in trying to do the best we can. I know we've gone a little over what we thought we were going to be here. I appreciate you all once again. Moving on, we will go to D1, upcoming events. I don't see any there. I will now ask us to do the assessment of this meeting.
And I'm sharing my screen so you have the go to the real
Okay, I think we've all answered. General meeting behavior, the board meeting behavior by assigning numerical meeting, da, 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 da. The agenda was well planned to focus on the real work of the board. 5 said commendable. The board followed its agenda and did not allow itself to get sidetracked. 5 said commendable. The board's deliberations and decision-making processes were public. 5 said commendable. All board members participated. In discussion, no one dominated. 5 said commendable. Members listened attentively, avoiding side conversations. 5 said commendable. Board actions occurred at the policy level rather than operational level. 4 said yes, 1 said NA. The board agenda referenced policy about each topic that was discussed. 1 said yes, 1 said no, 1 said NA. The board chair helped the board efficiently conduct its meeting. 5 said yes. The board supported superintendent in any reasonable interpretation. 4 said yes, 1 said not applicable. The board started with a broad statement and became more detailed in a logical and disciplined sequence in newer modified policies. 1 said no, 3 said not applicable. The board asked the superintendent to provide his reasonable interpretation of the policy. 1 said yes, 3 said not applicable. Overall, 3 said commendable and 2 skipped.
That's an option?
Don't know what happened there.
Maybe everyone's brain is fried.
And then I did have a comment there. I don't know where I can see that, Chris, or if I can, but it was basically, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys. Once again, let you know that I appreciate you all. I'm sure our community appreciates us. Let's continue on. Let's.
I appreciate it. We did what we did tonight, 9 hours to do last night.
Yeah.
We didn't have lunch last night.
Yeah. So again, I appreciate you all very much. Having finished our meeting here tonight and nothing else being pending, ladies and gentlemen, this meeting is adjourned.